On Wednesday night, April 1st, Donald Trump stood in the cross hall of the White House and told the American people the war was almost over. We are on track to complete all of America's military objectives shortly. Very shortly. 36 hours later, Yemen fired ballistic missiles at Israel. Lebanon fired rockets into northern Israel. Iran fired another wave of missiles at the same time. 3 separate forces, 3 separate countries, 1 coordinated strike, launched simultaneously against a single target. The Houthi military spokesman went on television and said it plainly. This operation was conducted jointly with our Mujahideen brothers in Iran and Hezbollah in Lebanon. Not a coincidence, not a parallel, a joint operation, formally declared. On the record. The war Trump said was nearing completion just opened a brand new front, and then another one, at the same time. This is what a multi-front war looks like when it starts. Right now, the Israeli Defense Forces spokesperson is using those exact words, multi-front war, for the first time in this conflict. If you want to understand what just changed, and why it matters more than anything you've seen in the last 35 days, stay with this. And if this channel has been giving you the context that the headlines aren't, subscribe now, hit the bell. It takes 2 seconds and it genuinely makes this work possible. Start with the timeline, because the sequence of events tells you everything. February 28th, the United States and Israel launch Operation Epic Fury. Surprise strikes on Iran. Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei killed. The IRGC commander killed. The defense minister killed. Iran's entire top leadership decapitated in a single night. March 2nd, 2 days later, Hezbollah fires missiles and drones into northern Israel. The first Hezbollah attack since the 2024 ceasefire. A ceasefire that held for more than a year, gone in 48 hours. March 11th, Trump says the war will end soon. March 28th, the Houthis resume attacks on Israel, suspended since October 2025, back without warning. Ballistic missiles targeted at what they called sensitive Israeli military sites in southern Israel. Sirens go off around Beersheba. Sirens go off near Israel's main nuclear research center, 3 times in one night. April 1st, Trump addresses the nation. We're going to finish the job, and we're going to finish it very fast. April 2nd, Houthis, Iran, and Hezbollah fire simultaneously, coordinated, declared, on the record. That is the timeline, a month of escalation that every official statement said was going the other way. Here's what the Houthis actually said, because the words are extraordinary. The Deputy Information Minister of the Houthi movement, Mohammed Mansour, spoke to local media on April 2nd. He said, "We have joined the war to provide support to our brothers in Iran who are fighting epic battles." He added, "We are in joint coordination with our brothers in Iran, Lebanon, and Iraq." And then he said something that should make every analyst sit up straight. He said the Houthi movement bears a moral, religious, and humanitarian responsibility toward Iran, Hezbollah, and Iraq's popular mobilization forces. This is not a militia making a tactical decision. This is an ideological declaration, a formal statement of solidarity that functions as a war entry announcement. The Houthis are not doing this because they calculated a military advantage. They are doing this because they believe they are obligated to. That is a different kind of enemy than a calculated actor you can deter with cost. Now understand what Israel is actually facing. From the north, Hezbollah in Lebanon, still active. Israeli intelligence estimates Hezbollah retains approximately 1,000 drones, roughly 3,000 fighters, and around 25,000 missiles. That is after everything Israel has done to them, after the 2024 ceasefire, after the decapitation of their leadership, after more than a year of Israeli strikes that never fully stopped. 25,000 missiles, still. From the east, Iran. Degraded, yes. Iranian ballistic missile launches dropped by 90% in the first week of the war. On day 1, Iran fired more than 400 missiles. Now it's down to 20 to 40 per day. US and Israeli strikes have destroyed an estimated 70% of Iran's missile launchers. 2/3 of its arms manufacturing capacity is gone. But here's the thing that the numbers hide. Iran went into this war with somewhere between 2,500 and 6,000 missiles. More than 1,500 have been fired. An unknown number have been destroyed on the ground. That still leaves thousands. Iran's navy is 92% destroyed. Its conventional military is a shadow. But its missile program, even at 10% capacity, can still reach every population center in Israel. From the south, the Houthis, 2,500 kilometers away, in Yemen, armed with ballistic missiles that can reach Tel Aviv, cruise missiles, drones, a group that the United States spent an entire dedicated military campaign against, Operation Rough Rider, 51 days of strikes, and still could not fully disarm. The Houthis survived Hezbollah's decapitation, survived Assad's fall, survived their own losses. They are still operational. And now they are formally in this war. And from the east and north inside Iraq, Iran-backed popular mobilization forces, 67 drone and missile attacks on U.S. and regional targets in the first 3 days of the conflict alone. 4 fronts, simultaneously, against one country of 10 million people with no strategic depth. The IDF spokesperson's statement deserves to be read carefully. He did not say Israel was ready for a multi-front war. He said Israel was preparing for a multi-front war. Preparing. Present tense, right now. That is a military publicly acknowledging it is reconfiguring for a scenario it hoped to avoid. Israel's air defense architecture was designed for layers. Iron Dome handles short-range threats. David's Sling handles medium-range. Arrow handles long-range ballistic missiles from Iran. The system is layered specifically because each threat comes from one direction at a time. When rockets come from Lebanon simultaneously with ballistic missiles from Iran, simultaneously with ballistic missiles from Yemen, those are 3 different intercept geometries, 3 different radar tracks, 3 different threat speeds, 3 different intercept solutions, all at the same time, on the same night. The system is not broken, but it was not designed for this. Here is a number that puts the Houthi threat in specific context. Approximately 30% of Israeli imports pass through the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, the narrow waterway that connects the Red Sea to the Gulf of Aden. The passage through which Israel-linked shipping must travel to access global trade routes that avoid the longer route around Africa. The Houthis have publicly stated that closing the Bab el-Mandeb is among their options, not a threat, an option they are openly discussing. Mohammed Mansour said it on Saturday. Closing the Bab el-Mandeb Strait is among our options. They have done it before. For 2 years, from late 2023 to late 2025, the Houthis imposed a maritime blockade that paralyzed Red Sea shipping and forced global rerouting at enormous cost. They lifted it as part of a ceasefire arrangement tied to the Gaza peace deal in October 2025. That arrangement is now void. The Houthis have formally rejoined an active war. If they close Bab el-Mandeb again, 30% of Israeli imports stop moving through the most direct route available. There is another dimension that has received almost no coverage: the USS Gerald R. Ford. The Gerald R. Ford is one of the most powerful aircraft carriers ever built. It went into port in Crete for repairs just before the Houthis resumed their attacks. It needs to return to operational deployment. The question American commanders are now asking is where. The Red Sea is where the Houthis operate, the same sea where the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower faced a relentless campaign of drone and missile attacks in 2024. The same operational environment where the USS Harry S. Truman endured sustained targeting during the 2025 American strikes on Yemen. Sending the Gerald R. Ford back into the Red Sea means putting it within range of Houthi anti-ship missiles and drones in an active conflict environment. That is a decision with no good answer. Keep the carrier in port and reduce American power projection. Send it into the Red Sea and accept the risk of the world's most expensive warship coming under fire. This is what the joint Houthi-Iran-Hezbollah coordination has produced. Not just a new missile heading toward Israel, an entire reconfiguration of American naval strategy in the region. Now look at Trump's April 1st speech through this lens. He said, "We are on track to complete all of America's military objectives shortly, very shortly." He said, "We're going to finish the job. We are getting very close." He said, "The Iranian conventional military is effectively destroyed. They don't have a navy. They don't have the ability to hit us like they could have even a few weeks ago." Vice President Vance had said it even more bluntly days before. The Iranian conventional military is effectively destroyed. All of that is partially true. Iran's navy is 92% gone. Iran's missile launches have fallen 90%. Iran's arms manufacturing capacity is 2/3 destroyed. And then, the day after that speech, Yemen fired ballistic missiles at Israel. Lebanon fired rockets into northern Israel. Iran fired another wave. All coordinated, all declared, all simultaneous. The objective was to destroy Iran's ability to project military power. The strikes have done enormous damage to Iran's direct military capability. What they have not done, what no amount of bombing Iran can do, is neutralize the proxy network that Iran built over 40 years, specifically so that it could survive exactly this scenario. Hezbollah was not built by Iran as a luxury. It was built as Iran's forward defense, its second strike capability, the weapon that keeps firing even after Iran itself is hit. The Houthis were not built by Iran as a convenience. They were built as a maritime denial force capable of shutting down regional trade routes at will. The popular mobilization forces in Iraq were not built by Iran for local politics. They were built to threaten American bases in the one country between Iran and the Mediterranean. Destroying Iran's conventional military has not destroyed Iran's architecture. It has activated it. Here's the domestic American dimension of this moment, because it runs directly alongside the military one. 13 American service members have been confirmed killed in this conflict, not in Iran, in the region, at the bases that Iran and its proxies have been targeting relentlessly. Gas prices in the United States have surged past $4 per gallon. Oil is trading above $100 per barrel for the first time since the worst moments of the 2022 energy crisis. Brent crude spiked above $104 in the hours after Trump's speech. Stock markets have fallen to multi-year lows. The Nikkei dropped more than 2% the morning after the speech. South Korea's Kospi fell nearly 4%. Asian markets that had nothing to do with starting this war are absorbing its economic shockwaves. Trump's own pollster, Tony Fabrizio, delivered a private assessment to the White House during the third week of the war. The war was growing increasingly unpopular. The economic pain was registering with voters. Key public supporters were criticizing a conflict with no clear end in sight. White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles reportedly told aides to be more forthright with the boss about the political and economic risks. She was concerned that Trump was getting a rose-colored view of how the war was being perceived domestically. That internal concern was real on April 1st. On April 2nd, 3 new actors declared formal military coordination against Israel. The political pressure on Trump to end this war is now colliding directly with a battlefield reality that just became significantly more complicated. There is a phrase that keeps appearing in strategic analysis of this conflict. The phrase is axis of resistance. It is Iran's phrase. Iran coined it deliberately. It describes the network it spent 4 decades building. Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthis in Yemen, the PMF in Iraq, Hamas in Gaza, specifically as a forward defense that could absorb strikes on Iran itself and continue fighting. Analysts widely considered this axis to be in decline. Hezbollah's leadership was decapitated in 2024. Hamas was devastated in Gaza. Assad's Syria, the geographic link between Iran and Lebanon, collapsed entirely. The Houthis took 51 days of American bombing. The assumption was that the axis was broken, that when the decisive blow against Iran itself came, the proxies would be too weakened to respond effectively. That assumption is being tested right now, in real time. Hezbollah, with leadership killed and an estimated year of Israeli strikes since the 2024 ceasefire, is firing on Israel. The Lebanese government publicly condemned Hezbollah for launching attacks without state authorization. It called on Hezbollah to cease fighting and place its weapons under government control. Hezbollah fired anyway. The Houthis, after 51 days of American bombing and multiple rounds of Israeli strikes, are firing on Israel. The UN Special Envoy for Yemen urged them to stop. They fired anyway. These are not organizations that respond to pressure with restraint. They are organizations that interpret pressure as proof that they are fighting the right enemy. Here is what a joint operation declaration actually means in military terms, because it is easy to miss. When the Houthis say they conducted this strike jointly with Iran and Hezbollah, they are not using loose language. Joint coordination means shared target packages, synchronized launch timing, communication between command structures across 3 countries, 2 of which are under active bombardment, in a real-time operational context. Iran's command and control infrastructure has been hit repeatedly. Its communications have been targeted, its leadership has been killed, and yet, Iran is still coordinating joint missile operations with forces in Yemen and Lebanon in real time. That is either a testimony to how deeply Iran pre-built distributed command redundancy into the axis, or evidence that the strikes have not degraded Iran's coordination capability as much as official statements suggest. Either conclusion is alarming. The IDF is now managing something that no military in recent history has managed: a simultaneous, multi-vector missile threat from 3 directions, from 3 separate military organizations, with 3 separate weapons inventories, under ongoing offensive operations in Iran and Lebanon, with an active ground operation being prepared inside southern Lebanon. More than 1 million Lebanese civilians have been displaced, 20% of Lebanon's entire population. A humanitarian crisis, building on top of a military crisis, building on top of a regional economic crisis. Oil at $104, gas at $4 and rising, American service members dead, stock markets falling, 13 confirmed killed, and a president with no clear exit date telling the nation the job is almost done. There is a number that frames everything. The Houthis' deputy information minister counted the fronts publicly. He called it 10 plagues on the axis of evil: Hamas in Gaza, Hezbollah in Lebanon, Assad in Syria, militant organizations in the West Bank, the Houthis in Yemen, and 5 additional strikes directly on Iran. He was counting Israel's accomplishments, and still, after all 10 of those blows, he was announcing a new joint military operation. Destroying an enemy's conventional military does not end a war when that enemy's strategy was never built around conventional military power in the first place. Iran's strategy was always built around exhaustion, around making the cost of fighting it exceed the benefit of any objective achieved. 4 fronts now: an unresolved Strait of Hormuz, a threatened Bab el-Mandeb closure, oil markets in crisis, American service members dead, a domestic political clock ticking in Washington. Trump said the operation was nearing its completion. The Houthis, Hezbollah, and Iran just answered that statement with missiles. The question is not whether this war is almost over. The question is what over means when the enemy you went to war with was designed to outlast the war itself. If this gave you a picture that the headlines aren't drawing, share it. One click gets this to someone who needs the context. And if you haven't subscribed yet, this is exactly the kind of analysis your subscription funds. The next video is already being built. You will not want to miss it.